Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today what we got going on is something a little unexpected for me anyway. Basically was going to do some routine maintenance on the old Exoda here and ran across a really big problem. So I thought I would show you what's going on and let you follow along with the repair. So as you can see, there is no front axle in the front of this truck. So what the deal was is I had a broken stud that holds the third member in, and it was leaking gear oil out, which obviously is very important. And I hadn't torn the front end of this part in a while. So anyhow, what seemed to be pretty routine turned into something that's not very routine. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. So this is where the third member goes in. So that stud right there was broke off. I must have hit it on a rock or something when I was out wheeling. And anyhow, I was leaking gear oil out. So I thought, okay, well, I hadn't taken the burr fields and all that apart and serviced it in quite a long time. So I was like, I'll take it apart. We'll go ahead and what you could do is you could thread a bolt through the back side and then put a nut on there and easy peasy, no problem. But when I did all that and put it back together, I found out when I tried to put the burr field back in there that it wouldn't fit anymore because the axle housing is bent. I've had a lot of steering problems with this thing in the past and never could really figure it out. And so come to find out, both of them are bent. This one is really bent. You can tell just by looking at it right there that it is bent that way. And this one's bent that way as well. I happened across this little jewel right here. So what we got to do is do some modifications to it before I put it back in. And that's how that's done. Alright, so I got this all cleaned up, kind of. I mean, it's not a finished product, but clean enough so I could do some mock-up. I ended up cutting this mount for the stabilizer shock for the steering. We don't need that where we're going. And so what I'm going to do now is this is the truss, and I got to shape it a little bit to make it fit. So, alright, so after a little bit of cutting and grinding and whatnot, I finally got this thing where I'm happy with it. So basically just going to start tacking just like I would any other sheet metal piece. And of course across the back side. And of course I got to fill that in too. But anyhow, we'll go ahead and plug away on that next. Alright, so I'm letting it cool off a little bit, but essentially that's the deal. Since this is technically sheet metal, both of these are, I'm going to treat it just like I would a door or anything else. Just tack away until you eventually fill all this in. You start fucking burning a big old hot bead in there, then I have a chance of warping the axle housing, which will kind of defeat the purpose of why I'm doing this, right? All right, it's another day in the shop, and so what we're gonna do here is put the axle housing in the truck, get it all assembled. I'm gonna try and do it correctly this time. I'm actually gonna go through how to do all the torque test and blah 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 blah. I don't know what they call it, but anyhow, Nick had the tool and he let me borrow it, so we're gonna set up basically you set up the trunnion bearings and etc etc. So let's get after it. All right, so I got the housing bolted back in. That's nothing really, there's no rocket science involved in that whatsoever. It's 4 U-bolts, so I spared you that. I also got the shock bolted on there. Once again, nothing really extraordinarily special about that. So what we got to do next is the trunnion bearings here that allows the wheel to spin. The aftermarket ones have a different angle to the bearing than the stock ones do. So for an example, these are the angle of the bearing is like really wide, and the bearings for the aftermarket ones are really steep. So you got to make sure if you're doing this that you don't try to stick that bearing into that race, because that won't end well. And let's see here. So I'm going to clean this all up now. I already pounded the old ones out. All right. Get that thing in there as square as you can. Tap her in till she's all the way in. You can hear her change notes. That way you know that's all the way in. Sweet. So what I'm running is the old school dirty 30 spline Burfields that Trail Gear came out with back when Bobby Long was still alive. These have been in there a long time, and they've taken a lot of abuse, and they're still kicking. So essentially you take the flat spot and line it up with that, because physics would say that it ain't gonna fit in that way. So you want to be careful not to mess the seal up. So you try to be as nice to it as you possibly can, and give it a little hello there. And oh, come on, baby, come on. I tell you, there we go. Just like that. Okay, upon further review, put grease in here before you put the Burfield in. I did that off camera because I was like, yeah. Anyhow, so now that the Burfield's in there, we need to assemble the knuckle. So first thing that goes on is the felt. Let's see if I can get this old nasty thing on here without ruining it. Oh yeah, come on, baby. Just like that, okay? Put that on. And the next thing that goes on is the seal. Once again, the object is to get it on here without messing it up. Alright, look at that. That went on there pretty well. And then last but not least is the ring. And this ring sets into the backside of the knuckle when you put this together. Just like that. Alright, fantastic. Alright, so I have the knuckle bearings in here. Luckily I put grease in there and that holds it in place. So next thing I need to do is make sure that the shims are in here. And then we'll just slide her into place like that. Alright. There we go, just like that. Perfect. Alright, perfect. Just like that. We'll line up the front, or line up the top, I mean, and we should be in good shape. Alright, so we got it all together. Got the cone washers, lock washers and nuts on the top, and got the nuts and the washers on the bottom. got them all tightened up, so I'm going to torque them down real quick. From what I found on the old internet, that 70 foot-pounds seems to be the number. We'll get these torqued down, and then we'll see how much resistance it takes to spin this thing, just to make sure that I have the right shims in there, and make sure it's all happy. Where in the hell did I put the damn socket? Some of you may be wondering why I didn't clean this all up and paint it. And the reason being is it's just going to get all dirty anyway. I'm going to take it up and it's going to get all dirty. So I'm not really too worried about how it looks. And besides, I got a phrase, chrome don't get you home, which is absolute truth. As long as it's done properly, it don't matter what it looks like as long as it's solid. All right, cool. So the next thing we're going to do is see how much pull tension it takes to pull the knuckle. So basically how much torque it takes to get this thing to start turning. So basically how this works is, as you can see, the more tension it takes to pull this, it shows how many foot-pounds it takes to pull that thing to make it work. So put this to there like so. Let me grab you here so you can see what's going on. So the spec is between 7 and 13. So let's see what it takes. Right there looks like just about 8. 8 to 9. There we go. All right, so we got the knuckle full of grease. Basically fill it up full of grease. Put some, I like to use silicone. Silicone that up, tighten all the bolts up. Make sure that the little, oh, come here. Make sure that this is facing towards the bottom. That lets all the crap and stuff fall down out of the bottom there if it does happen to collect. And that's the proper way to clock it. All right, as you can see, got her all back together. Not really, pretty self-explanatory. Clean silicone, bolted on, clean silicone, bolted on. All right, so as you can see, I got this all put back together. So the next thing I wanted to do is this brake line, actually both of them, have been like this for a long time. I took the vacuum plates off because they kept getting packed with dirt and mud and crap like that, and it actually was harder on the brakes than it was to not have anything there at all. But I'm a little worried about this thing wiggling like that for so long. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of this steel here. And what the plan is I'm going to do some deal like this. Use the shock bolt, and then I'll fold this over and bolt it together like that, so that way that'll eliminate this from wiggling around like that. All right, so we got the, I guess I should have brought the camera over here. So I got this all pretty much happy. It's not going anywhere, as you can see. And I was getting ready to put the brake pads on. I forgot to show you guys this fancy braking system that I had on this thing. It's called the two-piece brake pad. Boop, right? So this is the good one. And this is the bad one. So one thing I don't like about bonded brake pads is this. The caliper's not stuck. I mean, those are pretty new calipers. But as you can see, yeah, that's no bueno. So I did get some new brake pads too to put on here, but I thought that was pretty funny that, I mean, as you can see, there's a lot of pad left on this thing. Good thing I took this thing apart to do some service to it, right? I appreciate you watching, and we'll catch you next time.